Ladies and gentlemen, this next segment of the podcast is brought to you by the Heritage Foundation. For over 50 years, the Heritage Foundation has been America's outpost in Washington, fighting against the D.C. federal bureaucracy and working to secure a future that allows Americans to flourish. You see, for too long, conservative principles have been ignored by many of the very leaders claiming to fight for America. But the Heritage Foundation is proud to hold our leaders accountable and stand up for America's founding principles, paid for by the Heritage Foundation.
He's here. He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Mark Levin here. Our number, 877-381-3811, 877-381-3811. You know, this Biden issue goes to the heart of our republic. If one man, if one family, if a staff at the White House, if an attorney general of the United States, if a hand-picked doctor, if the Democrat Party and their media, they can do to the American people what they did, then what will they stop at? Nothing. Nothing. I want to give this some foundation, some context, and then I want to get into this a little bit. And when we take calls at the bottom of the last hour, I'd be very curious about your input on this. But this was something that I actually discussed in 2022, and I used the word possible dementia. You may recall this, Mr. Producer, on TV, and I was waved off. I was waved off. I was looking for the clip, but I couldn't find it. But I was waved off. No, you can't say that. In any event, a lot of eyebrows rose, but I could see. I could tell, as I told you, we have a family member who's quite ill with Alzheimer's. But I want to start this now to remind you what I said a year ago on Fox. I did an entire monologue on this. And I'll tell you what's interesting is when I do these monologues here on Fox, on Blaze, it is amazing how events catch up with the monologues. These monologues that I've done on Fox about Qatar, look at the exposure now about what Qatar is and what Qatar has done. Nobody was doing that. Or you might recall March 2017. March 2017, right, Mr. Producer? Is that when it was? No. Yeah. March 2017. We played it on the anniversary, I believe, on how we put together the spying on Donald Trump. Nobody was doing that. But let's lay the foundation for what's being discussed now, well after the fact. And so this is from June. What is the date? I don't remember, Rich. I don't have it in front of me here. June 16, 2024, opening monologue of my Fox show. Go ahead.
We see Joe Biden. We see how he walks. We see how he stares. We see how he gets angry and how he cringes. This issue of dementia is a serious issue. I should know. I've had 2 people in my family who've had Alzheimer's and 1 who had moderate dementia. It's not funny. It's very upsetting. It's depressing to watch somebody deteriorate like this, and in the early stages, they know they're deteriorating. And then how the family has to care for the person, wants to care for the person. It's not funny. You've never heard me do jokes about Joe Biden and dementia. Oh, I'll make jokes about him on other things, but not that. And Potter Stewart said about pornography once, I know it when I see it. I know dementia when I see it. I think I speak maybe not for all, but for many people, many families who've seen this. The telltale signs. It's not a mystery when somebody's deteriorating. Everybody gets old and they have memory issues. They'll forget a name here and there. They'll mix things up. That's to be expected. That's not what we're talking about here. And this is why I'm so disgusted that Joe Biden is running for president, that his family wants him to run for president, that the people around him are like a Praetorian Guard pretending he's as sharp as a tack, that the American media are playing along, in fact, playing defense. It's the United States of America. We're talking about the President of the United States. We're talking about one branch of government that controls whether we go to war or not and what type of weapons we use, among 1,000 other things. You see men in the past, healthy men, in their 50s. You've seen what the presidency does to them. We're the greatest country on the face of the earth, and we are facing China, Russia, North Korea, Iran. We have issues going on in this country that are ripping us apart. You can see what's going on our streets, the crime, the drugs, the anti-Semitism. It's not good enough for a president to do well in a debate or do well in a State of the Union speech, and everybody says, see, he was great for 90 minutes.
And by the way, let me interrupt. This was before the debate. Go ahead.
Many people who have dementia or Alzheimer's, early stages, can do that sort of thing. That is, you look at them and you say, actually, they're doing okay. But they're not doing okay. The job of a president is 24/7. There's a reason Joe Biden has taken vacation 40% of his presidency. There's a reason why he won't have give and take press conferences on a regular basis. There's a reason why his staff walks around him when he goes to and fro from the helicopter. There's a reason why we're seeing on television what we're seeing, and we're hearing what we're hearing out of the president's mouth, because he's not well. Again, I'm not saying that as a joke. He's not well. People have heart disease. I do. People have diabetes. People have all kinds of things. And people have mental health issues. And it's not funny. But it is utterly unconscionable and irresponsible for the largest political party in this country to be nominating somebody for president who they nominated before when he wasn't well, when the vast majority of its members know damn well that what I'm saying is the truth. And the hosts in every news organization in America know what I'm saying is the truth. And the people who've met with him, Schumer, Hakeem Jeffries, Nancy Pelosi, who go out and lie for him, they know I'm telling the truth. We have a report from the special counsel, Robert Hur, who was investigating Joe Biden for crimes related to classified information. And he found that he committed crimes. And he did so willfully under the Espionage Act. And didn't do so with presidential protection. He did so when he was a senator, when he was a citizen, and when he was vice president. But he says, I can't charge him because the Department of Justice has taken the position that you can't charge a sitting president. Plus, he says, he's not mentally fit. And so what happened? The special counsel came under a withering attack from the White House, from the Democrat Party, from the leadership of the Democrat Party, from their campaign operatives, from the media. But the man's speaking the truth. He didn't have an issue with Biden as president or being president. He had an issue when he interviewed him for 5 hours. And we have an Attorney General of the United States who will not release the audio. We, the people, we have a right to hear the audio, especially now when we're making a decision about the presidency. When we see what we see and we hear what we hear, we want the audio. He comes up with some kind of cockamamie privilege. He goes over the White House. Only a president can assert privilege. Biden asserts privilege to protect his audio. This is a sham. They don't want transparency. The special counsel said Mr. Biden's memory was significantly limited, both during the recorded interviews with the ghostwriter in 2017 and in his interview with our office in 2023. These aren't national security secrets, the audio. The argument that, well, it could affect other investigations, how preposterous. Anybody remember the release of grand jury testimony from Bill Clinton with the cigar? Was that a national security secret? They come up with these lies. He also said, we have also considered that at trial, Mr. Biden will likely present himself to a jury, as he did during our interview of him, as a sympathetic, well-meaning elderly man with a poor memory. That's not good enough for President of the United States. We had a report out of the Wall Street Journal by Annie Linsky and Siobhan Hughes. Now, these two have come under withering attack. They're not Trump supporters. They're reporters. Reporters tend to be Biden supporters. They're liberals, I'm sure. I don't know. But they're under attack because they dared to write an article, behind closed doors, Biden shows signs of slipping. Participants in meetings said the 81-year-old president performed poorly at times. The White House said Biden is sharp and his critics are playing partisan politics. No, the Democrats are going to run somebody for president. How is this partisan politics? Well, he's going to be the nominee. That's the problem. When President Biden met with congressional leaders in the West Wing in January to negotiate a Ukrainian funding deal, he spoke so softly at times that some participants struggled to hear him, according to 5 people familiar with the meeting. He read from notes to make obvious points, paused for extended periods of time, sometimes closed his eyes for so long that some in the room wondered whether he had tuned out. Now, it goes on, and of course, it has the White House pushing back. It has the White House calling people they interviewed to tell them to call the Wall Street Journal back and tell them that actually it wasn't as we thought. This is a scam.
Now, there's another 4 or 5 minutes of this that we will play, if not in the next segment after the bottom of the hour, but all of this was before the debate. And why am I playing this? I'm playing it because we knew, the media knew, the Attorney General knew, the staff knew, his wife knew. And if he hadn't done that debate, he would have been their nominee. And even more, as I keep saying, I said yesterday, the 25th Amendment of the United States Constitution should have been triggered a long time ago by Kamala Harris. She knew, and by that cabinet, they knew. This was a massive, massive cover-up. This is a scandal, the likes of which this nation has never experienced. On top of another scandal, the effort to destroy Donald Trump through lawfare. The nation never experienced that either. But keep something in mind that I keep pointing out. These 2 scandals were occurring simultaneously. The effort to destroy Donald Trump, to bankrupt him, in the effort to protect Joe Biden, who was mentally disabled. And that's what the ruling class did. That's what the Democrat Party did. That's what the media did. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
The Heritage Foundation wants to wish a happy Armed Forces Day to the men and women currently serving in the United States Armed Forces. Heritage recognizes that without their sacrifice and devotion, Americans could not enjoy the freedoms we have today. And with Memorial Day right around the corner, it's more important now than ever to reflect on the sacrifices of so many. Unfortunately, the U.S. government doesn't always honor those sacrifices very well. A declining defense industrial base and a nuclear arsenal that some say is quickly being outpaced by China are some of the most pressing issues facing our military right now. Defense experts at the Heritage Foundation have spent significant time investigating these issues, and they now have solutions. So please go to heritage.org/Levin, heritage.org/LEVIN. Get access to Breathtaking, the Heritage Foundation's newly released nuclear documentary. Grab your copy. It's absolutely free. Again, go to heritage.org/Levin, LEVIN. Get access to Breathtaking. You'll also find their latest report on how the U.S. can take action now to revitalize our declining defense industrial base. You can find these eye-opening resources at heritage.org/Levin, heritage.org/LEVIN, paid for by the Heritage Foundation. We're going to have to wait till after the bottom to play the final few minutes of that, but that's a year ago. And people were talking around it or mocking it or that sort of thing, but I feel today we really need to think about the consequences of something like this. The media trying to pretend that they had no role. I mean, Jake Tapper now has a best-selling book out talking about how the media covered this up in the staff when Jake Tapper was one of the principal con artists. I mean, everybody's seen the video. Every single network other than Fox, every single one was involved in the cover-up. Every single host who talked about it, almost, was involved in the cover-up. Think about this, folks. Every single Democrat in Congress who was asked about it, but one, this guy Dean Phillips, who was running but nobody cared, covered it up. Every single one of them. Bernie Sanders, Hakeem Jeffries, Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, name them. Now, what hasn't been discussed any further, of course, is not only is it a danger to the United States, this man was meeting with foreign leaders. And they knew what we knew. They saw what we saw. Foreign leaders. This issue of the Autopen is a very, very serious issue. We're going to have Chairman Comer on the program in hour 3 at about 8:20 p.m. Eastern, because they think they know one or more of the staffers who was involved. I don't know that he'll disclose it on the program, but I will probe to see what he knows. Now, you can't have nameless, faceless staffers using an Autopen on legislation, on executive orders, on proclamation. I mean, what the hell is going on here? And then they ran him again until they had to pull him. But they wanted to do it again. That's the point. You have the cabinet that was involved in a cover-up. You have the vice president who was involved in a cover-up. You have Milley, the head of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. He was involved in a cover-up. The Attorney General of the United States was involved in the cover-up. Look at the extent, the breadth and width of this cover-up, of this scandal. The ruling class, the people who control the presidency and the House of Representatives and the Senate. Look what they were doing. At the same time, they were destroying our justice system to try and take out Donald Trump. Let me be as clear as I know how. They were trying to take out Donald Trump to clear the pathway for Joe Biden, who was incapable of functioning as a president. That's what the ruling class was doing. They were using the power of government. Power of government. In the greatest cover-up in American history to try and get Biden through another election. And then they were using the power of the Department of Justice, of U.S. attorneys, of local DAs, of an attorney general in New York to try and take out his main opponent. It wasn't one or the other. It was both. Both were taking place. And now finally you'll hear some people talk about this tomorrow. But I've been talking about it. We touched on this yesterday. I'm trying to underscore the point today, just how thoroughly diabolical this sabotage was. And you were the target. You were the target of the whole thing. We'll be right back. Have you thanked a U.S. service member recently? With Armed Forces Day this past weekend and Memorial Day coming up right now, the Heritage Foundation is committed to honoring the sacrifice of those who gave their lives for our freedoms and protecting those who currently serve. The U.S. government, however, has not demonstrated the same commitment. Our defense industrial base, which is vital to keeping a strong and ready military, it's in a shambles. Our nuclear arsenal is even in worse shape. The Heritage Foundation recognizes the severity of this threat, and you can now gain access to what their research has uncovered. It's unbelievable. In fact, it's breathtaking. Go to heritage.org/Levin, heritage.org/Levin. Get access to the report. It's called Breathtaking, China's Race to Nuclear Dominance. This is eye-opening. It's a deep dive. It underscores why it's critical that the U.S. take action right now. You'll also gain access to the Heritage Foundation's latest report on how to revitalize our declining defense industrial base. For the safety of those who currently serve, it is imperative that we take action right now. So please visit heritage.org/Levin, heritage.org/Levin, paid for by the Heritage Foundation.
The establishment's worst nightmare. Mark Levin. Call in now. 877-381-3811.
All right, let's take a listen to about a year ago of the second half of what I was explaining about Joe Biden. And I go into some very significant particulars, I believe. Go ahead.
The Democrat Party is running a man for president who shouldn't be president. We have a 25th Amendment to the Constitution. Section 4 of the Constitution requires the Vice President of the United States and the Cabinet to care more about the country than they do their own party in power. But we don't have a Vice President and a Cabinet who care more about the country than their own party and their own power. What does it say? Whenever the Vice President, a majority of either the principal officers of the executive departments or of such other body of Congress may by law provide, transmit to the President pro tem of the Senate and the Speaker of the House of Representatives their written declaration that the President is unable to discharge the powers and duties of his office, the Vice President shall immediately assume the powers and duties of the office as acting President. And it goes on to say the President can push back, provide a letter to Congress, and then Congress has to take the subject up, and by a supermajority can make the decision on whether or not the President is fit or not. That's a serious constitutional amendment. It's in the Constitution. It's the 25th Amendment. But Kamala Harris and that cabinet wouldn't dare do that. But they should, but they won't. So that part of the 25th Amendment is a dead letter, which, by the way, as a footnote, is a reason why Congress needs the audio, to take a listen to it and make a determination whether we needed another amendment or fix this amendment.
Now, let's stop there as I'm live commenting on this. This is crucially important. The Attorney General of the United States heard that audio. They transcribed that audio. They would not give the audio, not even to Congress. The fact is that Congress can trigger the 25th Amendment, but he didn't want them to trigger the 25th Amendment. He knew, because he's part of the cabinet, he didn't trigger the 25th Amendment. He should be held to account. He also, however, withheld that audio from the other members of the cabinet who really didn't need it, but nonetheless, and presumably the vice president. The Attorney General of the United States was a main player in this massive cover-up, his deceit of the American people and his deceit of Congress. He was also the main player in the war against Donald Trump, the effort to throw him in federal prison and to bankrupt him. This man who came across as sort of an elderly former judge with a very calm demeanor and thoughtful comments and so forth and so on, was nothing but a raw, power-hungry operative. That's all he was, Merrick Garland. And I'll say it for the third time tonight so members of Congress can hear me. He needs to be held to account for both sides of this unprecedented, outrageous scandal. The defensive efforts to protect Joe Biden and the offensive attacks aimed at destroying Donald Trump. The man who was in charge of that was the Attorney General of the United States. He did both. The Department of Justice, other operatives there, the Deputy Attorney General, the head of the Criminal Division, the Associate Attorney General. They did both. They unleashed a special counsel unconstitutionally against Donald Trump, while at the same time they were protecting Joe Biden from the 25th Amendment, from discovery by the American people, and from Congress. Go ahead.
For a great republic. It's just unacceptable for a great republic. And 100 years from now, assuming this republic still exists, they're going to wonder, who the hell were these citizens who voted like this? or this corrupt media, the corrupt Democrat Party. But history's too late. This needs to be dealt with now. Now, what am I talking about? Again, in all seriousness, and of course I'll come under attack. I don't care. The truth is the truth. There's 7 stages of dementia. Verywellmind.com is just one of many, many sites, medical, that point this out. And dementia progresses in stages ranging from mild to severe. Isn't it amazing we haven't had this discussion any time in the last 5 years on any network? Because they try to intimidate us. This needs to be discussed. It needs to be analyzed. It needs to be vetted with the American people. We need to know as much as we can. And I'm not going to cover this up. 7 stages of dementia. And so the first stage is no cognitive decline.
Let's stop here for a moment. Again, I'm live now. Now, I go through this, and you'll hear the last few minutes. So there's no way Jake Tapper didn't hear this, or these other people didn't hear this, the Democrats in Congress, the staffers. They all heard it. They all knew I was right. And they marched on. And they marched on. You know, when Jake Tapper says in his now best-selling book, which is really a disgusting disgrace, this grifter who helped cover up, participated in the worst scandal in American history, certainly the worst political scandal in American history, is not profiting from it. I can't think of anything more grotesque and immoral, quite frankly. But that said, there's no way this could have been missed, certainly by anybody close to Biden or anybody who talked to the people close to him. And as I said at the time, as I said last week, as I said yesterday, and I'll say again, his wife, Jill Biden, is utterly evil. Evil. Because she knew everything about it. His bathroom habits, his ability to get dressed in the morning, what kind of mood he was in when he was awakened in the morning. I mean, she saw it up close and personal. She knew better than anybody else. But she was power hungry. And does everybody remember why this government exists? It exists for we the people. Not the power hungry, not the rulers. We the people. Go ahead.
Function normally and doesn't exhibit any signs of memory loss, confusion, or cognitive impairment. However, the structure and functioning of their brain may have started to deteriorate as the nerve cells, the neurons in their brain start to lose connection with other brain cells and die. Okay, people can function that way. Stage 2, very mild cognitive decline. The person starts to experience occasional lapses of memory, such as forgetting where they keep familiar everyday objects, forgetting names they once knew very well. At this stage, the symptoms are unlikely to affect the person's work or social interactions. We know a lot of elderly people who have this problem. Okay, fine. Most of them aren't president, by the way. Stage 3, mild cognitive decline. Now it gets more serious. This is a stage where cognitive impairment starts to become more noticeable to the patient, as well as their friends, family members, and colleagues. The person may start to show symptoms such as getting lost while walking or driving, particularly in unfamiliar places, reading something and retaining very little of it, forgetting the names of people they've just met, losing items of importance or value, having trouble concentrating and performing complex tasks, experiencing increasing difficulty in social settings, and so forth. Stage 4, moderate cognitive decline. In this stage, the person will exhibit a definitive decline in cognitive ability in a clinical interview. Lack of knowledge of current and recent events, difficulty remembering parts of their own personal history. We have that in the Hur report. Trouble with organizing, planning, traveling, and managing finances. And it goes on. Stage 5, moderately severe cognitive decline. From this stage onward, the person may no longer be able to function without some assistance. Some of the symptoms: difficulty recalling an important detail, such as their address, phone number, or high school, or the date of their son's death, or when they were vice president, I would add. Disorientation in terms of place and time, such as confusion regarding the season, date, day of the week, or time of the day, or mixing up names of people, or turning in the wrong direction and staring into the sky. And other problems like trouble with making decisions. At this stage, the person can likely still remember their own name and the names of their spouse and children, but they may struggle with recalling the names of their grandchildren. They may be able to eat and use the bathroom without assistance, but may need help with tasks such as deciding what to wear and so forth. Stage 6, severe cognitive decline. And stage 7, I don't think the president is in stage 6 or 7. I think he's heading there, and he's heading there very quickly. If I had to guess, he's likely well into stage 5. I don't know. But Jill knows. His doctor knows. The experts out there know. And we, the people, need to learn more about the cognitive state of the President of the United States, and they need to stop playing cat and mouse with us. This is about the country and the future of the country. That's the bottom line.
So that was before the debate, and I'd mentioned it on other occasions on Hannity's show, on this show, and on my own Fox and Blaze shows. And look, you saw it yourselves. But I felt somebody needed to pull it all together and speak out, and so I did. And nobody else had. I mean, Rich, nobody else had. I looked at people on my own network. I've looked at people in talk radio. I looked at people on other networks, newspaper companies. Nobody was just pulling it together and laying it out. So I did it. And so Jake Tapper comes along and he writes a book about all the cover-ups. I'm not a journalist, America. I'm one of you. I call it as I see it. I'm a partisan for America. This whole get-up, this whole setup of the government is for you. It's to protect you. Now, what you saw there is what I call negative power and negative language, negative power. They will do anything for power, and they did. And then they will use coercive language and threats and bully tactics to hold on to that power. That's what you saw. That's what happens in tyrannies. The positive power is the pushback. Our nation was founded on positive power, not on negative power. The whole Constitution is a model of positive power. How do you set up a governmental system that holds the country together while at the same time nurtures individual liberty? Positive power, and again, I'll get into this more tomorrow because we're not going to have enough time today, is it starts from an altogether different premise than negative power. It starts from the belief that God is the sovereign. Your country started this way. Read the Declaration. And through God, his children, you, the individual and the people, you're the sovereign of our society. Not a handful of people, not some governmental contraption, you. So power properly understood and exercised in the context of government is about the well-being of the people, not the rulers. The people are the sovereign, not the governing authority. And importantly, the belief in God-given eternal rights, natural law, unalienable rights, those words are in your Declaration of Independence. That's the basis of a moral and virtuous society that transcends any ruling class. Again, I'll deal with this more tomorrow, but it is in my new book on power. And it's totally relevant. These are the two forces, not the oppressed versus the oppressor. That's Marxism. It's we the people versus the ruling class. If the ruling class were as contemplated by the framers of your Constitution, I call that positive power, that would be one thing, but they're not. They're constantly looking for ways, whether through rogue, unelected federal district judges, through open borders to change the demographics, change the citizenry, to change the vote, changing the voting system to empower one political party against another, trying to find ways to silence open and free speech when open and free speech is absolutely necessary, including during a pandemic. This is what we're up against, this negative power. And, it's sad to say, don't shoot the messenger here, but the trajectory whether it's in our country with respites like Ronald Reagan and Donald Trump, but the trajectory in Europe, for sure, is in the wrong direction. That is, negative power is devouring positive power. That's what's happening. Positive power, one's approach to life and role in society more involves practices and decisions and values and beliefs that together form one's life philosophy. That results from learned, cognitive, reactionary, experiential, or even instinctive thought processes. And, significantly, faith. Now, that doesn't mean everybody has a faith or believes in religion or even believes in God. But that's what our society was established on, whether they believe it or not. And they get the benefit from the society that is established that way, whether they want to believe in these things or not. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
The Heritage Foundation wants to wish a happy Armed Forces Day to the men and women currently serving in the United States Armed Forces. Heritage recognizes that without their sacrifice and devotion, Americans could not enjoy the freedoms we have today. And with Memorial Day right around the corner, it's more important now than ever to reflect on the sacrifices of so many. Unfortunately, the U.S. government doesn't always honor those sacrifices very well. A declining defense industrial base and a nuclear arsenal that some say is quickly being outpaced by China are some of the most pressing issues facing our military right now. Defense experts at the Heritage Foundation have spent significant time investigating these issues, and they now have solutions. So please go to heritage.org/Levin, heritage.org/Levin. Get access to Breathtaking, the Heritage Foundation's newly released nuclear documentary. Grab your copy. It's absolutely free. Again, go to heritage.org/Levin, Levin. Get access to Breathtaking. You'll also find their latest report on how the U.S. can take action now to revitalize our declining defense industrial base. You can find these eye-opening resources at heritage.org/Levin, heritage.org/Levin, paid for by the Heritage Foundation. You know, ladies and gentlemen, there's a lot of reports out there. There's a lot of leaking taking place to Axios, this phony guy by the name of, what is his name, Barack Ravid or something or other, Mr. Producer? You know who I mean. And some of the others. That the White House is pressuring Israel to hurry up with Gaza already, that these pictures are too much. These are leaks. And I think I know at least one, if not two, of the people who are leaking. Axios ran with that. And Pat Ward, senior White House, not Pat Ward, that was sent to Pat Ward at the Fox News Channel to correct this. Max Bluestein, the spokesman for the National Security Council, he said this is absolutely false. Israel has had no better friend than President Trump. We continue to work closely with our ally Israel to ensure that remaining hostages in Gaza are freed, that Iran never acquires a nuclear weapon, and that every opportunity for regional economic prosperity, especially the expansion of the Abraham Accords, is exploited. As Secretary Rubio explained over the weekend, what the president is saying is he doesn't want to end the war until Hamas is defeated. The leak said that the president, the administration, was pressuring Israel to get this over with. And the White House formally said, that's not what we said. These leaks are outrageous. This segment of the podcast is exclusively sponsored by Pure Talk. Pure Talk offers great coverage and can save your family money on your wireless bill every single month. Go to puretalk.com to find the plan that's right for you. Thank you again for listening, and thank you so much for this sponsorship, Pure Talk.
He's here. He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Hello, America. Mark Levin here. Our number, 877-381-3811, 877-381-3811. You know, I'm very impressed with this cabinet. They have been on Capitol Hill, House and Senate committees overseeing their budgets, and the Democrats have used it as an opportunity to try and smear and attack. And to a man and a woman, these cabinet officers have done a fantastic job of pushing back. Don't you think, Mr. Producer? Really good. Really good. And it was Marco Rubio's turn. And he had a few things to say. And RFK Jr., he's been kicking ass up there. I'm just telling you the truth. This guy, I told you before, I was, I wasn't sure what to make of the guy. But the more I listen to him and the more I watch, doesn't mean I agree with everything, but I agree with more than I thought I would, the more I'm liking him. Anyway, here's Marco Rubio today regarding Hamas. Cut 18, go.
I think the central question for the future of Gaza is going to be who governs it. Because as long as there's a group like Hamas there, it's going to be very difficult to envision long-term peace and prosperity. So whether it's Hamas or some successor organization that spins out of it, that has to be a factor that you eliminate. And one of the ways you prevent it is by having a governing authority on the ground in Gaza that can provide the security necessary to allow there to be the peace necessary so you can have the prosperity we hope for.
Well, I'm not sure all that's going to happen, but what I liked about what he said is that you're not going to have any kind of peace as long as you have Hamas. Now, the leaks that are coming out of we don't know where, but I think I know who's leaking, is that the Israelis are defiant, that the Israelis won't give in, that the Israelis won't do a ceasefire, the Israelis this and the Israelis that. And I don't think it's any coincidence that Qatar is a mediator. A mediator when Qatar funded October 7th. And Qatar says Israel's the problem because they keep attacking Hamas. Now think about that. How sick that is. Here he is today, Rubio, about Iran. Cut 19, go.
Well, I think it's clear for the Iranians. I mean, we're going to continue with sanctions until there's a deal otherwise. And by the way, there's also another set of sanctions out there that involve things like the sponsorship of terrorism and things of that they're doing. But when it comes to the nuclear program, until there's a deal, there's going to be sanctions. That's just the way it works. And so that's the president has issued an executive order for maximum pressure, and that's being executed on every single day. None of these are being slowed down while we're engaged in these talks. Ultimately, if we are able to reach a deal, then obviously that could be a part of it, but we're not at that stage yet. So, look, we hope that there can be something done. These will not be easy. And by the way, one additional note on it is there's a separate set of sanctions out there, which are the snapback provisions that the E3 in Europe have. That's on another clock, completely different from ours. And I want to be clear about that. What they decide to do with their sanctions. Now, maybe we'll do a deal with Iran and they'll be satisfied with it and not impose their sanctions. But I met with the E3 again. What day is it today? Tuesday? I met with them maybe 4 days ago in Turkey. And they are moving forward on their process, independent from ours, that could impose additional sanctions as early as July, August, September, October, November, September, October of this year.
We will be waiting. Can't wait to see what this deal is. President Trump on the Golden Dome by the end of my term. This is crucially important. Cut 20, go.
In the campaign, I promised the American people that I would build a cutting-edge missile defense shield to protect our homeland from the threat of foreign missile attack. And that's what we're doing. Today, I'm pleased to announce that we have officially selected an architecture for this state-of-the-art system that will deploy next-generation technologies across the land, sea, and space, including space-based sensors and interceptors. And Canada has called us, and they want to be a part of it. So we'll be talking to them. They want to have protection also. So, as usual, we help Canada do the best we can. This design for the Golden Dome will integrate with our existing defense capabilities and should be fully operational before the end of my term. So we'll have it done in about 3 years. Once fully constructed, the Golden Dome will be capable of intercepting missiles, even if they are launched from other sides of the world and even if they are launched from space. And we will have the best system ever built. As you know, we helped Israel with theirs, and it was very successful. And now we have technology that's even far advanced from that, but including hypersonic missiles, ballistic missiles, and advanced cruise missiles. All of them will be knocked out of the air. We will truly be completing the job that President Reagan started 40 years ago, forever ending the missile threat to the American homeland, and the success rate is very close to 100%, which is incredible when you think of it. You're shooting bullets out of the air.
And what's incredible is I want you to remember, America, and I did a whole show on this here and on TV, how the Democrats fought Reagan tooth and nail. I hope they don't fight Trump tooth and nail because they're trying to protect us. They're trying to put systems in place that will protect us. Pete Hegseth commented on this as well in the Oval Office. Cut 21, go.
Mr. President, add this to the long and growing list of promises made and promises kept. Ultimately, this right here, the Golden Dome for America, is a game changer. It's a generational investment in the security of America and Americans. Mr. President, you said we're going to secure our southern border and get 100% operational control after the previous administration allowed an invasion of people into our country. President Reagan 40 years ago cast the vision for it. The technology wasn't there. Now it is, and you're following through to say we will protect the homeland from cruise missiles, ballistic missiles, hypersonic missiles, drones, whether they're conventional or nuclear. And it's not lost on me, sir, also that you had the vision to start the Space Force, and here we are when the others said we didn't need it. Here we are in the Oval Office with one of the leaders of the Space Force in General Gutlein leading the charge on putting in place a game-changing Golden Dome for America. So, sir, it's an honor to be a part of this bold initiative. We're going to get to work on it. And we have been since you signed that executive order on January 27th. We've been fast forward on this. We're here on this day, and this is just one stop in delivering this defense of the homeland, which is something you've charged us with doing, and we'll keep going until it is complete, sir.
Don't you love Hegseth? The energy, the motivation, the can-do mindset. Despite what the Democrats and the media say, he's been a hell of a Secretary of Defense. He really has. I mean, it's early on, so he's got more time to do what he needs to do, but they tried to take him out, and he weathered a hell of a storm. He really did weather a hell of a storm, and he did and he's doing a fantastic job. All right. Let us swing back to the gentleman I spoke to earlier, Robert Kennedy. The Democrats hate him because he joined with Trump, because he was running as an independent, because he left the Democrat Party. They hate his guts. He's using the Kennedy name, which they own, they believe, in every respect. And so he's going at it here with Senator Merry from Washington State. Cut 16, go.
I want to point out something, Senator. You presided here, I think, for 32 years. You presided over the destruction of the health of the American people.
Well, our
people are now the sickest people in the world.
Seriously.
Because you have not done your job.
Seriously. That is an
What have you done about it? What have you done about the epidemic of chronic disease?
Mr. Secretary,
what have you done about the epidemic of chronic disease?
Seriously, Madam
Secretary,
Chairman.
I would ask it to hold back and let the senator ask the questions.
Again, this cabinet is really amazing. They are fighting back. Kash Patel, FBI director, cabinet or not, I mean, he was unbelievable. Robert Kennedy, one hearing after another. He is fantastic. Rubio. You have the others. Chrissy Noem has been absolutely unbelievable. I can go right down the list. As they punch back, they're not gratuitous, they're very substantive, but they go on the offense. Which is what I would do, of course, but that's what they do. They go on the offensive. Cut 17, go.
And what we're trying to do is eliminate the redundancy. There's no way to govern this agency. This agency has a budget that is comparable to the 6th largest nation in the world. And we have no governance because these are all in silos with their own infrastructure, and we're trying to consolidate them, and that's why they don't work. That's why we throw more and more money every year, and Americans are the sickest people in the world. We spend 2 to 3 times for health care what other nations spend, and we have the worst outcomes on earth. And if somebody does not reorganize this mess, it is going to continue. And we're trying to do it, and we're going to make some mistakes as we do it. But ultimately, I can tell you 4 years from now, the American people are going to be a lot healthier.
This is a thankless job, HHS. It is massive. It's got so many departments within departments and divisions within departments and offices within divisions and units within offices. He's exactly right. They cobbled this together. It was the Department of Health, and Education and Welfare, Health, Education and Welfare, HEW. They broke off education. They created this monstrosity Department of Education. But they throw all this social welfare, all this socialist stuff into HHS. That's where most of it is. And he's saying, we're trying to get our hands around this. We're trying to get this integrated. We're trying to figure out who's in charge of what. And I'm telling you, it is a monumental task. Monumental task. And so they're attacking him. Why? Why are they attacking him? Because they created it. This is what they want. They've created this abomination. And can you imagine government-run health care? It's enough that the government runs effectively 30 to 35% of our health care system and influences the other 65%. It truly does. Through Medicare, Medicaid, other programs, health programs. Effectively, the federal government determines pricing. As a matter of law, they determine how many doctors we're going to have, how many students we're going to have in medical schools. I mean, it's sort of a quasi-socialist system already. And what he's saying, Kennedy, here is, look, I got to get my hands around this damn thing. We got all these potentates. They're running in their own direction. We don't know who's going where. It is a monumental test. So rather than giving him that a boy, they try and kneecap him. And you see this throughout the agencies and departments. You really do. But I think the president really has done a fantastic job of picking people. They're mostly young. They're mostly energetic, very smart, very competent. The Democrats, try to take what's going on and make the argument, oh, they're inexperienced, they're incompetent. No, that's them. That's them. I think the way he's taking on the executive branch, we've talked about this, and these departments is really, it's historic. We've never seen anything like this before. We'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
Pure Talk, my wireless company, a veteran-led company, believes every man and woman who has faithfully served this country deserves to proudly fly an American flag that was made in America. And listen to this. That's why Pure Talk is on a mission to give an allegiance flag, the highest quality American flag ever, to 1,000 U.S. veterans in time for the patriotic holidays. Switch your cell phone service to Pure Talk today. Know that you're supporting a company that will be providing these high-quality flags made in America to deserving veterans. With plans from just $25 a month for unlimited talk, text, and plenty of data, you can enjoy America's most dependable 5G network while cutting your cell phone bill, in many cases, in half. The average Pure Talk family saves over $1,000 a year. Just go to puretalk.com/Levin. That's puretalk.com/Levin to switch hassle-free in as little as 10 minutes. Again, that's puretalk.com/Levin. Switch to a wireless company that supports our veterans, that is patriotic, based right here in America. Switch to Pure Talk. FAA just announced dramatic cuts in flights in and out of Newark for the foreseeable future. Unfortunately, they have to, because that is another disaster waiting to happen. It would be nice if the mayor of Newark was more focused on that than his drama queen activities in New Jersey. You'd be nuts to vote that guy in as governor. Absolutely nuts. And President Trump, who was on Capitol Hill this morning, to try and rally the Republicans. And I'm going to get to that in a minute, too. But he's very worried about this Autopen thing, and you should be, and we should be. You can't have a government running like this, America. This isn't representative government. It's totalitarianism. It's one-party totalitarianism, and they have their state-run Al Jazeera Pravda media. That's why this grifter, fake Jake Tapper, trying to make money off to something he was involved in is so disgustingly outrageous. Cut one, go.
And now you find out what happened, because Biden, look, it's a very sad thing what happened, but we're going to start looking into this whole thing with who signed this legislation. Who signed legislation opening our border? I don't think he knew. I said there's nobody that could want an open border. Nobody. And now I find out that it wasn't him. He auto-penned it. Who was operating the Autopen? This is a very serious thing. We had a president that didn't sign anything. He auto-penned almost everything. He opened the borders of the United States of America. And I kept saying, who would do such a thing? Allowing criminals to pour in from all over the world, not just South America, all over the world. They came in from Africa. They came in from Asia. They came from the Congo. The prisons in the Congo and Africa, these are rough people. The prisons from the Congo are empty. You know where they are? They're in this country. Who would sign this? Nobody would sign it. No sane person would sign it. You know who signed it? Radical left lunatics that were running our country, and the Autopen signed it. And they didn't want him, and they were disappointed in getting him because they wanted Bernie Sanders. And then after about 2 weeks, they said, wait a minute, this is a gift. He'll do anything. We're going to use the Autopen. And they used the Autopen and everything. He didn't approve this stuff because when Joe Biden was with it, he would never have approved it. You take a look. He would have never approved open borders.
I agree with him. You know, I don't give the benefit of the doubt anymore to these people defending Biden. Not that I ever did, but you get the point. Or the media. Can you prove it, Mark? I don't have to prove anything. Just look what's happened to the country. The issue is, why won't the media report it? Oh, did the media know who these people were who used the Autopen? The Autopen was obviously used. It's easy to find out. It compares signatures. And so now the Department of Justice is looking into it, and they should. I'm telling you, ladies and gentlemen, this is the biggest scandal in American history, certainly American political history. And again, the dual scandals, the simultaneous scandals, the effort to take out Trump and the effort to keep Biden in and protect him. And I think most of this was orchestrated with the White House and the Department of Justice. That's my theory. Anybody have a better one? And I believe it'll hold up over time. That's my theory. And I believe it's more than a theory. I believe it's accurate. Now let's talk about what's going on Capitol Hill. We have a very small majority in the House. And what this has enabled people to do is to try and take control of the House of Representatives, blackmail other members. Unfortunately, we're seeing it with some of our friends out of New York, some of the Republicans there. And they're saying, look, we want the interest deduction significantly increased on interest rates. I happen to agree with that. I don't agree with the argument that says that Florida, my residency, or Tennessee, the residency of my kids, our kids, some of them anyway, or other states that don't have an income tax, are subsidizing New York and California. It has nothing to do with subsidizing anybody. This money belongs to us. It's a tax deduction. If we start talking like Marxists, then, you know, ethanol is a subsidy. Well, I don't want to do that because, you know, that's Iowa and Kansas and so forth, and I'm from Maine, and, you know, it can't work that way or nothing's going to get done. More when I return. Pure Talk, my wireless company, a veteran-led company, believes every man and woman who has faithfully served this country deserves to proudly fly an American flag that was made in America. And listen to this. That's why Pure Talk is on a mission to give an allegiance flag, the highest quality American flag ever, to 1,000 U.S. veterans in time for the patriotic holidays. Switch your cell phone service to Pure Talk today. Know that you're supporting a company that will be providing these high-quality flags made in America to deserving veterans, with plans from just $25 a month for unlimited talk, text, and plenty of data. you can enjoy America's most dependable 5G network while cutting your cell phone bill, in many cases, in half. The average Pure Talk family saves over $1,000 a year. Just go to puretalk.com/Levin. That's puretalk.com/Levin to switch hassle-free in as little as 10 minutes. Again, that's puretalk.com/Levin. Switch to a wireless company that supports our veterans, that is patriotic, based right here in America. Switch to Pure Talk.
Nobody says it better than Mark Levin.
I'll go with what Mark Levin said, because nobody could say it better.
Call in now at 877-381-3811.
By the way, for those hoping otherwise, the media and their media entrails, they call them aggregators. How can I say this? Well, I started down the road, so I should. Donald Trump and my relationship has never been tighter. Never. Enough said, right, Mr. Producer? Enough said. Enough said. Enough said. And because both mature, we both have conversations, we both understand things, and they create this entire fiction about him and about me, but mostly about him. It's an entire fiction. So I just wanted to point that out for everybody. Let me ask you a question. When we take calls at the bottom of the next hour, Westwood One and Blaze and I are in discussions about putting this program on video, at least a couple hours of it. What do you think of that? If we put it on video, would that change the way you listen to the program? And there's nothing wrong with that, because this is the thing everybody does now. Now, I don't have a problem with it. I always wear my pants. I'm not like some of these other people, on CNN. But in all seriousness, the thing is, Rich, when we play music and I do my thing, people are going to actually get to see that. Is that a good thing? But I think it can be very interesting for people. I mean, I'm an old radio guy. I didn't necessarily need to see the people. But there is a curiosity out there. I get it. Plus, I nibble a little bit here. Not while I'm on the air. But, it's 6 to 9, my time, Eastern time. So, like right now, I have a bowl of grapes right here, Mr. Producer. I love grapes. What's it with grapes? I love grapes. But anyway, I'm just curious what you think about that. I think it could be kind of cool, a little different, Now, folks, we have something good that's happening. The rule of law is actually being applied. And I think this is very, very important. That's right. It's actually being applied to a Democrat congressperson. I don't call them congresswomen because who knows how to define that. Now, it's this one congresswoman who's seen on videotape assaulting an ICE official. And so she's now been indicted. Acting U.S. Attorney for District of New Jersey, Alina Habba, I really like her, is charging Representative LaMonica McIver. LaMonica? Okay, LaMonica. LaMonica McIver for her alleged misconduct. Yeah, it was alleged. We all saw it on video. Towards law enforcement in front of Delaney Hall in New Jersey. Earlier this month, but she's dismissing the trespass charge against Newark Mayor Ras Baraka. Representative McIver assaulted, impeded, interfered with the law in violation of Title 18 U.S. Code, Section 111A1, Habba said in a letter that she shared on X. Now, that conduct cannot be overlooked by the chief federal law enforcement official in the state of New Jersey. It's my constitutional obligation to ensure that our federal law enforcement is protected when executing their duties. Hell yeah. So what did McIver have to say? McIver. Remember that TV show, McIver, Mr. Producer? I hated that show. Earlier this month, I joined my colleagues, she said, to inspect the treatment of ICE detainees at Delaney Hall in my district. Not really. It was a pretty good show. We were fulfilling our lawful oversight responsibilities, as members of Congress have done many times before, and our visit should have been peaceful and short. Instead, ICE agents created an unnecessary and unsafe confrontation when they chose to arrest Mayor Baraka. So it's now ICE's fault. Yeah, she needs to be prosecuted. Problem is, it'll be in New Jersey. Charges against me are purely political. That's right. When I slammed that ICE agent, I was just making a statement, a free speech. They mischaracterize and distort my actions. No, we saw them. And are meant to criminalize the term legislative oversight. That's not legislative oversight, moron. This administration will never stop me from yak. Florence Nightingale. Now, Secretary Kristi Noem, Department of Homeland Security, weighed in on the charges. She said no one is above the law. You know, they mistook this Kristi Noem. She was governor. She was a congressman. Very attractive lady and, you know, likes nice clothing and so forth. And they just figured, all right, she's a pushover. This lady is no damn pushover. She is tough. If any person, regardless of political party, influence, or status assaults a law enforcement officer, as we witnessed with Congresswoman, they say, Congressperson McIver did, you'll be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law, the Secretary wrote. We thank our brave ICE law enforcement officers. Isn't it different now? ICE knows they have the administration behind them. Same with the Border Patrol. Same with cops everywhere. Fox News has learned McIver must turn herself in as soon as possible, though it's up to the magistrate as on the specifics of when she must turn herself in and how. This is going to be the problem. The magistrate, the judge. Prosecutors also told Fox News McIver faces several felony charges, so she's looking at possible time behind bars. That could be interesting. Hobb also announced in her letter, after extensive consideration, the charges on Baraka are being dismissed. He was originally charged with a Class C misdemeanor trespassing. I think they should be treated like the January 6ers, don't you, Mr. Producer? They look like an insurrection to me. Look quite violent. They were on government property. The book should be thrown at every damn one of them. Baraka released a statement, barely coherent and literate, so I'm not going to read it to you. Let's see. If I was a typical U.S. citizen and they tried to storm into a detention facility that's housing dangerous criminals or any person at all, they would be arrested. DHS Assistant Secretary Tricia McLaughlin told Fox News. Kevin Corke on set. I like this Kevin Corke. I like Kevin Corke. I mean, I've seen him on Fox before, but obviously they're giving him a bigger role, and I think he is absolutely up to that task. He's fantastic. Katie Pavlich is another one. Ben Domenech is another one. They have some really, really good people. I'm not trying to leave people out. They're just off the top of my head. Let's see here. Is there any more to this story that we care about? Oh, yes, Hakeem Jeffries is very concerned. This will open the floodgates. No, what does that mean? How stupid do you have to be Hakeem Jeffries? Seriously. I think pretty stupid. Now, what did they expect ICE to do? Oh, there's a few Congress idiots and the mayor idiot, and they're yelling at us and threatening us. So you know what? We're going to let all you criminals, all you felons in particular, we're going to let you loose in the public. We're going to let you loose in Newark. I'd be curious what the people in Newark, New Jersey think about that. I think if I randomly selected people from Newark, New Jersey, and questioned them in Newark, I often use their train station there. If I were to question them, I think they'd say it's nuts to release these people. Nuts. Wouldn't anybody? Wouldn't everybody? We'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
Pure Talk, my wireless company, a veteran-led company, believes every man and woman who has faithfully served this country deserves to proudly fly an American flag that was made in America. And listen to this. That's why Pure Talk is on a mission to give an allegiance flag, the highest quality American flag ever, to 1,000 U.S. veterans in time for the patriotic holidays. Switch your cell phone service to Pure Talk today. Know that you're supporting a company that will be providing these high-quality flags made in America to deserving veterans. With plans from just $25 a month for unlimited talk, text, and plenty of data, you can enjoy America's most dependable 5G network while cutting your cell phone bill, in many cases, in half. The average Pure Talk family saves over $1,000 a year. Just go to puretalk.com/Levin. That's puretalk.com/Levin to switch hassle-free in as little as 10 minutes. Again, that's puretalk.com/Levin. Switch to a wireless company that supports our veterans, that is patriotic, based right here in America. Switch to Pure Talk. Expert witness tells Congress 1.4 million illegal aliens who've already gone through the due process and have been ordered deported are roaming free in the United States. Due process. Well, they got due process, and they're roaming freely in the United States. They're roaming freely in the United States. When do we get due process? 1.4 million of those ordered. Scott Minchowski, who served as the Immigration and Naturalization Service and Immigration and Customs Enforcement for more than 20 years, now on the board of the National Immigration Center for Enforcement, NICE. This is what he's telling lawmakers. ICE detention centers and enforcement and removal operations are not optional. They're essential to the rule of law. He says without them, our immigration system collapses into chaos. And he said detention is not punitive. It is a lawful tool to ensure compliance with immigration proceedings and final removal orders. Yet 1.4 million of those ordered removed still are roaming free, a population that drives the need for more bed space. Over 60% of ICE's detained population is held under mandatory detention laws. That is, they have criminal records, their flight risks, or national security concerns. And there's not enough room for them. I told you, Cloward and Piven, they've overwhelmed the system. They've overwhelmed the detention facilities. They've overwhelmed the administrative immigration law judges. They've overrun our federal courts, and they did it on purpose. That way, the vast majority of people who came illegally will become, if not citizens outright, effectively citizens, and their children, as long as birthright citizenship continues, and I fear it may, under this court, their children will become citizens, and then those children will be involved in chain migration, and that's the end of it. He said, let's be clear, detention safeguards due process. It guarantees the alien appears in court and their rights are respected. They can access attorneys and families, and that removal orders, once lawful and final, can be carried out safely and responsibly. Yeah, but they're running from the law, so they're not going to do any of this stuff. That's what they're doing. They have no intention of playing by the rules. And so there's that. I'm guessing you didn't hear much about that today. 1.4 million illegal aliens ordered deported, removed from the country, are here, and they're roaming around, and you're not going to hear crap about it. At least I don't think you are. Now, when we come back, I want to dig more heavily into this issue of this bill in this what's become a cockamamie debate. Wow, if we have bigger deductions for interest, that means my state will get screwed. How so? Because we don't have an income tax. So why do you care if there's bigger deductions? Well, because then we have to come up with the difference in our budget. Excuse me, it's our money. It's our money. But still, then we have some of these members who say, either I get my way or I'm voting no. Now, if they vote no, and if they can't get a bill through, do you know what happens, Mr. and Mrs. America? The average person out there, your taxes are going to go up 68%. 68%. And the economy the economy will flatline because we need these tax cuts. Reagan got them because they needed them. And as I said the other day, what's interesting about this, when the Reagan tax cuts went through, the issue wasn't whether Republicans would vote against it. Almost every Republican voted for it. The issue was whether he could get some Democrats in the House. He had won the Senate. He didn't have the House. And he needed blue dog Democrats, led by a man you may have heard of before. And he got them. And so we got the tax cuts passed. I'll be right back.
He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
How yous doing? Hello, everybody. Mark Levin here. Our number, 877-381-3811. Is NPR still around? National Public Network? I hope not. I have another question on this Biden stuff. I'm watching and thinking about this during the break. It never stops. The brain just keeps going. We've condemned those, rightly so, who were involved directly in the cover-up: family, friends, staff, Democrats, the media. I repeat myself. But what about the millions of people who voted for Joe Biden? Not just the first time around in the general election, but in the primaries leading up to his nomination. Well, Mark, they didn't have an alternative. Of course they did. They could write somebody in most states or just not vote. And they did have an alternative. This guy, Dean Phillips, was trying to run, and of course they crushed him. But what about the millions of people? I think there were 15 or 16 million people in the Democratic primaries who voted for Joe Biden, knowing what we all knew. Think about this now. You know how the Democrats like to slime you and me? How they like to put labels on you and me, the most horrendous types of labels? How they like to sloganeer about us and so forth and how dumb we are, and it goes on and on. Notice all that? But look at their voters. You had 15 or 16 million of them who slavishly, as my friend Jesse Waters used the word, I prefer slavishly, who slavishly voted for Joe Biden. And then you have all this new media on the Democrat side, like Mediocreite. And, of course, the Sludge Report, that used to be the Drudge Report, they were all in for Biden. All in for Biden. But the millions and millions of people who voted for Biden, what's their excuse? Well, they didn't know? No, we all knew. Or is it just that we conservatives are superior mentally? Really? No, it's a realistic matter. They voted for him. They didn't care. They would have voted for a kumquat. I've always used that as an example. The Democrats would vote for a kumquat. They don't care as long as they have power. They didn't care he was there. And Donald Trump is on to something big here. They knew he didn't have it. The Autopen was moving around. Things were getting done that the old Joe Biden would never have it support, even though he was a liberal. He believed in secure borders and something and things of that sort. But you wouldn't know it based on what was taking place. You wouldn't know it. But there must be thorough investigations of this. History demands it. We demand it. Who was running the place? We want to know who they are. The instances the Autopen was used, who authorized that? And was it used in ways that affected us? On executive orders, on regulations, on laws, and God knows what else? I'll bet you Dr. Jill had a role in all this stuff. I mean, how would she not? How would she not? You could see she was on top of him, controlling him, finishing sentences for him, walking for him, all this other stuff. Who? So she had a role. There's no question about it. I think he had 2 or 3 chiefs of staff. They had a role. They had a role. But can you imagine being in one of the few cabinet meetings he had, and you're sitting there and you know damn well what's going on? They swore to uphold the Constitution, every one of those cabinet members, and they didn't. They didn't. The vice president didn't. She's not qualified to be governor, president, vice president. She's not qualified to hold any public office, is Kamala Harris, because she was one of the generals in the cover-up for the American people. Why? Because she was vice president. She had a responsibility under our Constitution. That's why. And none of these people were in the... Buttigieg, he wants to be president. President of what? The United States? Even before all this, he wasn't qualified. I don't mean constitutionally. I mean experientially. But that aside, he was part of the cover-up, too. Any Democrat that went on TV that said, this guy's as sharp as hell, should be dismissed as a candidate. This guy, Cory Booker, 25 hours crying over, well, we don't know what he was crying over. Hard to know. He was using what the Democrats called a racist, segregationist method, the filibuster, in his case a quasi-filibuster, to say nobody knows what the hell he was saying. But he knew. They all knew. So that should be the first test for any Democrat who wants to be president in 2028. What did they know and when did they know it? Now, they're going to lie, but we have the clips. We have the information. How many times did they meet with Biden? It's like the cover-up of this cancer. Of course we wish him well. Of course it's a horrible thing. And of course the timing is preposterous. So this was an entire cover-up operation. Let me put it in a way that some folks will understand here. This was the worst kind of election interference in American history. The cover-up of Biden and the attempt to destroy Donald Trump through our legal processes. This was a disgusting effort to manipulate the election so the Democrats would stay in power, so they would be able to further empower themselves. This is why they try and add seats to the Supreme Court, to turn it into some kind of a political Politburo owing to them. This is why they try and change the election laws. This is why they oppose voter ID for voting or voter ID for even registering in federal elections. Crazy. But this is who they are. So, Republicans and others, say what you will about most of them, most of you, you're honorable. You're not looking to destroy the society. You're not looking to fundamentally transform the society. You want representative government to work. It's not about destroying the society, changing the society, re-engineering the people, re-engineering this or that. It's about representative government, the consent of the governed. And the bigger and the more centralized government gets, the more difficult that becomes. So we're dealing with two utterly, completely different viewpoints, their ideology and our philosophy. And so they'll lie. And they'll cheat. And they'll deceive. And they'll rewrite history. But I get back to the point I made when I came back on the air this hour, which is they had 15, 16 million people who voted for Biden in the primaries. You had this guy, again, Dean Phillips, who was trying to nudge his way in. The Democrat Party wouldn't allow it. And so we need to remind the people again and again and again, the Democrat Party, the media, they colluded to interfere with the election, both in terms of trying to destroy Donald Trump and in terms of covering up for Joe Biden. There are other things they covered up with Joe Biden, quite frankly, including the fact that there were issues with other women. And I don't mean necessarily consensual. And that was blown off too. Again, I'm not trying to stir the pot, but there was that. When we come back, we have Chairman Comer, who is scheduled to be here. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
Well, it's a pleasure, ladies and gentlemen, to have our friend Chairman Comer with us. Chairman Comer, welcome back to the program. Do I understand, is it true that you have a pretty good idea who was using the hell do they call it, the Autopen?
The Autopen. We've narrowed it down, and we're pretty confident based on some research and inside sources that we've identified the person, but we're going to bring in 4 or 5 people that would have all played a role in the Autopen. So hopefully we'll be able to learn something from these transcribed interviews and depositions. But we have a lot of questions, and I think the American people deserve answers.
Yeah, because this is tyranny. You can't have unelected staffers signing stuff to cover up for the president and to advance an agenda the American people didn't vote for. I've never heard of anything so disgusting as this. Let me ask you this, Mr. Chairman. How are you going to get them in front of your committee? You're going to have to subpoena them, I guess?
Well, we've asked them to come in, and if they refuse, then we'll subpoena. As you know, we have to demonstrate in good faith that we want them to come in. The subpoenas seem to do better in court. These employees have lawyered up pretty good, so we know that we're going to have to do everything right to be able to get them in to sit down for their depositions.
My God. And if they go to court and some court rules no, we're never going to get to the bottom of this, and getting to the bottom of this is a big deal. Let me ask you this question. We've been discussing on this program this evening the role of the Attorney General. The Attorney General was the center of the hub. The Attorney General knew what was on that audio. It was transcribed. He came up with some cockamamie privilege that nobody ever heard of before, and he withheld it, and he covered it up right through the election, and then he leaves. He was the same Attorney General while he was orchestrating the Biden side, was orchestrating the Trump side, so simultaneously, excuse me, he was working overtime to take out Donald Trump. This guy who comes across like a fatherly figure, careful about what he says, kind of bumble, former judge. Mr. Chairman, this man was diabolical, absolutely diabolical. What do you think?
No, I agree completely, and it's just it's refreshing that the truth is finally coming out. I'm shocked that the legacy media is finally admitting that they failed and that there was a cover-up. But, you know, I question their side of the story, that they didn't know all along. And look, you know, at the end of the day, everyone knows that Joe Biden wasn't making the decisions. You've got the Attorney General, who's supposed to be a check and balance in this whole equation, and he was not only failed at his duty as someone that was supposed to provide oversight or whatever, he was complicit. And I think that, you know, it's just it's terrible. And I would encourage the Trump Justice Department to try to see what they could do to hold him accountable.
100%. Now, I also think maybe our good friend Jim Jordan, the Judiciary Committee, I would think has some oversight here. It's the Department of Justice, after all, that they should bring him in too and question him about his various roles and so forth. And hopefully the Attorney General and others currently have access to materials if they weren't destroyed. It's the other thing, Mr. Chairman, that I'm scratching my head over. Am I to believe that the Presidential Records Act was not violated by any of these people trying to cover their asses on the way out the door? I can't imagine that. Can you?
No. And you know, we know that some of these staffers that we're going to bring in are going to try to claim executive privilege and all sorts of things to try to prevent them
By the way, aren't they going to have a problem? Aren't they going to have a problem with that, given what they did to Bannon?
We think so.
Yeah.
We think so. And again, it goes back to what I said in the beginning. We're going to try to make sure every I is dotted and T is crossed when we bring them in. But we have asked them to come in, and if they refuse, then the next step will be the subpoena. And at that point, we'll have demonstrated every good faith effort to get them to come in voluntarily.
Do you know, I don't know, this Autopen, does anybody just access to it? Is it under lock and key? Is it in a special room? I mean, how does this thing work?
I don't know how theirs works. I know mine's right out wide open in the office, and we have a couple of low-level staffers that use it. And what we use the Autopen for in my office is to sign proclamations and just little things like that. But when I have to subpoena someone or do something like that, I have to sign it. I mean, because my lawyers have always said if we don't sign it, then they could get it kicked out in court. And to think that Joe Biden's administration was using the Autopen to sign pardons and executive orders and appropriations of trillions of dollars, and it's just the list goes on. And I mean, it just begs to question if we can prove that Joe Biden didn't have any knowledge or wasn't capable of making the decision to allow someone to use the Autopen, then can these executive orders that were issued at the end of his administration to Trump-proof the federal government, can they be voided? Because these executive orders, especially the ones with the Federal Employees Union, is making it very difficult for Trump to eliminate the U.S. Department of Education and to trim the size of the federal government because they signed new contracts and collective bargaining agreements with the Federal Employees Union, and it's hurting Trump in court as he tries to drain the swamp.
Now, Mr. Chairman, don't you think the White House counsel, the White House chief of staff, some of these people should be dragged before maybe your committee or whatever committee it is? I mean, they are the chief, staffers, like they're on your staff or they were on my staff when I was chief of staff to the Attorney General. They were in the know. Right.
And I think they will. The great thing that's happened with this Jake Tapper book and all this other stuff is that momentum's on our side. When we requested, for example, the White House doctor answer some questions about the last time he issued a perfect bill of health for Joe Biden. They never did respond to our information. We requested information about who was making various decisions in the White House when it was obvious to everyone that Joe Biden was becoming essentially a mental invalid. They never did reply. So when we would talk about this over at the beginning of the Trump administration, the media would be like, why are you bringing up Biden stuff? It's all over. Well, now there's momentum. Now people are offended. People are outraged. They're reading this Tapper book where I was the one that said, I actually think Hunter Biden is running the show. And people laughed when I said that. Well, Tapper said that in an interview today, that Hunter Biden was essentially the de facto chief of staff the last 3 months of the administration. That is word for word what I said, the de facto chief of staff.
When we come back, I'd like to hold you just a little bit, if I may.
Okay.
This whole thing with the media now wringing their hands, is this not the most grotesque rewriting of history you've ever seen? We'll be right back with Chairman Comer.
Mark Levin, the thunder on the right. Call in now, 877-381-3811.
We're here with Representative Chairman Comer. Chairman Comer, this really doesn't have anything to do with your duties, but just as an American citizen, you watch this Jake Tapper. I'm told now his book is number 1 nonfiction book on Amazon. This guy's part of the cover-up. He's part of the deceit of the American people. And then he writes a book with another schlub, basically slapping the wrist of those who covered it. Are we living in the Twilight Zone? How do you get away with something like this?
I have no idea. I'm not going to spend a penny of my money on the book, But, at the end of the day, the free promotion that he's gotten out of this, and among all the liberal media, when it's it's a slap in their face. I mean, no one, the question is, did they really believe that Joe Biden was competent and they were fooled, or were they complicit in it? I mean, I don't know. I mean, I learned during the Biden investigation, the media was financially illiterate, and every story they wrote was copy and pasted from someone that sent it to them. And it's just there is no journalism in a lot of America left. There's conservative journalists, but there are no journalists left at these legacy media outlets.
Well, I've had you have you here this Trump bill, as it's called. There's always a couple, isn't there? And not just conservatives, but some of the Republicans from the Northeast too. They're going to hold up the whole damn bill and all that's in it because they feel they're not getting to this or that. I mean, I don't think Reagan could have gotten his tax cuts through this House of Representatives.
No, and Trump said it best when he said he called out one of the New Yorkers. I'm not going to name which name, but you probably know which one. And he's always complaining, always wanting more, and always saying, "Oh, he's going to get beat." And Trump told him today, he said, if you get beat, it's not because of salt. You were going to get beat anyway. And I agree with that completely. If you're so weak that you can't take one vote that might not have overwhelming approval in your district, then you really, you've got bigger problems in politics. No one's going to get what they want. But you're exactly right. It's usually the same 10 or 15 people. We have 220 Republicans in the House. There's not a single one of us that like 100% of that bill. But the way the system was designed was 435 members, and it takes 218 votes to pass a bill in the House of Representatives. You've got to work together and negotiate and compromise. And this bill's been done right. This, what Trump refers to as the big, beautiful bill or the budget reconciliation bill, this has gone through regular order. In 8 years I've been in Congress, this is the first bill that had multiple committees of jurisdiction. Mine was one, the Oversight Committee. We had jurisdiction over the federal employee benefits, and we passed our portion out of committee. We marked it up, as it's called. The 10 other committees did the same thing. We've debated. We've had countless workshops on this bill. We've had countless meetings, public meetings, private meetings. We've debated it. We've negotiated it. I mean, this is how the process is supposed to work. And so many times, Congress is broken and it doesn't do it the right way. And now these guys are saying, well, we need more time. I mean, we've done it the right way. It's been 4.5 months. It's time for the House to vote on it and send it to the Senate.
Yeah, I mean, to the extent it gets quote-unquote better, it's going to be de minimis to most of the American people. And the thing is this. I favor bigger tax deductions for interest and so forth, so you take another bite at it next time. I mean, you can't get it all done in one thing like this. And there's a lot in this bill that's good, right?
It's 95% of this bill is outstanding. And with Medicaid, we're not cutting poor people on Medicaid. We're trying to tighten the eligibility requirements because we believe there are a lot of illegals that are currently on the Medicaid rolls. And that's free health care. People get Medicaid and Medicare confused. Medicare people pay into, and they're entitled to receive it. Medicaid is free health care. And it's a good program it's supposed to be for poor children, poor pregnant women, poor elderly, disabled people. That's what it's supposed to be for. But what's happened is states have expanded it. These blue states especially have allowed these illegals to get on it. And then in states like Kentucky that expanded Medicaid, you've got people that are very healthy and men that are very able-bodied that couldn't work if they wanted to because they would lose their free health care. If they got a job at McDonald's, they would lose their free health care. So we've got to change it and protect it for the people that need it. And that's what Trump said today, and that's what we're doing.
This workfare aspect of it used to be in place. It was Obama who lifted that. I remember when Reagan fought for that and Gingrich put it in place. They remove it. So now you guys want to put it back in place to protect the people who deserve it, as you just said, the people who really need it. And we've got Republicans, number one, some who are afraid to run against that. And number two, the Democrats who lie about everything and anything. They're saying, oh, you're cutting Medicaid. And, you basically need 20 seconds to explain. I think able-bodied men should have to work 20 hours a day before they get Medicaid. I don't think illegal aliens should get Medicaid. I think we should protect it for the true poor American citizens who need it. How hard is it to say that?
I know. The only thing that's being cut on Medicaid is waste, fraud, and abuse. That's it. And I think the American people support that. It's going to be protected for the people that need it. And look, President Trump's been very clear on that. He didn't want to cut Medicaid. Now, we've got Republicans that want to cut it, and they make good arguments. But at the end of the day, this is what the president wants. The president campaigned. He said he wasn't going to touch Social Security. He said he wasn't going to touch Medicare and Medicaid. He was going to cut out wasteful spending, waste, fraud, and abuse. He's doing exactly what he campaigned on. This is the will of the American people. The president has a mandate. We've debated it. We've discussed it. People have given and taken on the bill. And at the end of the day, it's time to pass it. And surely to goodness, over the next 3 days, we'll pass it out of the House.
You know what? Here's the thing. And you see this in life all the time. You guys have put together a budget. Nobody even thought you could put this together. It's got so many good things on tips and overtime and people on Social Security and how you're going to reduce their taxes. You got a lot more money securing the border and the Golden Dome, and I can go on and on and on. And you do that, and they go, "Wow, look at this! Well, I want more. I want more." You're not going to get more. Get the damn thing passed, and you can play around with it next year.
You know, what I would like to tell these members, and there are a few senators like that, file a bill. See how many votes you can get. And they wouldn't get 15 or 20 votes. Okay, this is the only vehicle that can get 218 votes. It's either pass this bill or continue to govern, continue to live by the rules that Nancy Pelosi and whoever was controlling the White House under Joe Biden created. That's the option there.
By the way, I'll let you go, but those Democrats that were basically stormed that ICE detention facility, it was sort of a mini January 6th, I would say. You know, I think they ought to throw the book at them. That looked like an insurrection to me. We ought to circle that one on our calendar too, Congressman. Just saying. Well, anyway,
it looked like an insurrection to me too.
You're a good guy. We appreciate you. God bless you.
Thank you, sir.
All right, take care of yourself. He's a good guy. All right, let me find it. It's I don't want to bother the American people with my printer. It's not a matter of buying a new printer. People, what the hell, can't you? It's a matter of the damn thing working with my laptop, right, Mr. Producer? It's not a matter of cost. It's just crazy. All right, we're in a good mood today. Things are hopping. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
Let's go to Leon, New York City. How are you, Leon? What's up, brother?
I'm fine, and what I admire about you most, Mark, is that you tell the truth and let the chips fall where they may. You're the only one that's talking about Qatar. You're the only one that's telling the truth about Qatar. I mean, Qatar, there's subversion on American youth in the universities. They put in millions of dollars to subvert our youth, to make them crazy, and look what's happening. And the same thing, they're the ones that, tipped off with Sheikh Mohammed. They support Hamas. They support Hezbollah. And, all of a sudden, we used to align our with countries that had values. Now we're aligning ourselves with countries that have money. And Qatar is the worst. They're the Trojan horse. And you're the only one who's telling the truth about it.
You know, Leon, Qatar just had this big economic summit. And it was put on in partnership with Bloomberg Media. Bloomberg's multi-billion-dollar media operation. He's also in communist China. Does the man not have enough money? He's got to be working with these sleazeball terrorist reprobates. On top of that, you had major businesses, representatives of businesses. You had Petraeus. You had other former military there, other governmental officials there. They're in Qatar. They act like this is some Western country or some advanced country. They're still spending money on terrorism. They're still helping fund students for justice in Palestine. They're still funding the destruction of our Ivy League schools, and now they're going into K through 12. They're still buying politicians. They're still buying lawyers and law firms. They gave safe haven to the Taliban, to Hamas. They funded October 7th. Today they announced they're mediators. How is Qatar a mediator? And Qatar announced today, well, there'd be a deal, but Israel won't stop fighting. Israel? It's Hamas that did what they did, and Qatar funded it. They're in alliance with Iran. Iran is breaking, to some extent, the oil boycott through Qatar. Qatar is setting up third parties, freighters that fly false flags to help them get their oil to communist China. Listen, I'm not just telling you people this in America. I've told the president this. I've told people on Fox. On my Fox platform, I'm telling people now. So I don't want to hear when we get another attack, why didn't anybody say anything? I'm saying it now. All right, Leon, thank you. I didn't mean to yell, but I'm so friggin' frustrated about this. I understand we have enemies or former enemies and we have to deal with them. This enemy is an enemy within the United States right now. And how come nobody's asking the 9/11 families what they think about any of this? Isn't that funny? Where are all the reporters? Where's Mediaite? Where's the Drudge Report? Where's everybody? Why don't they track down? They're all over the place. They're patriotic Americans, the 9/11 families. Why don't they ask them what they think? I want to salute all you heroes out there. Folks, grab your copy of On Power tonight. Go to Amazon.com. Get the discount. Father's Day is upon us. See you tomorrow.